Who are the Green Bay Packers going to pick on Thursday and Friday and Saturday? We go through our last mock draft Monday. The draft is almost here. Let's do it.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. I hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Our final mock draft Monday. And we're going to spend the whole show trying to figure out what makes sense for Green Bay. And, you know, on Friday, we went through our perfect mock draft. The more I look at it, the more I think that it makes perfect sense for the Packers to draft an offensive tackle in the first round. But I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't. They met with Tyler Guyton and Amarius Mims in the pre-draft. I think they are looking very sincerely at first-round offensive linemen, and it will not be surprising at all if they draft one of them. Tyler Guyton being the one, and you know, look, we will get to Kingsley Suamataia here shortly. But the first player that we talked about as this is the guy for Green Bay was Cooper DeJean. And I'm not this player no matter what guy. I don't believe in that. It's a funny thing from a movie. And I get it. It's a meme. But Cooper DeJean, and we said this on the Friday show with Ross, I called him a problem solver. He just solves all your problems. You want him to play safety, which I think is where he would start, play safety. You want him to play in the slot because Keyshawn Nixon's hurt one week and you don't have another ideally fit. There he is. Eric Stokes not back to where you need him to be. Carrington Valentine not playing to the level you need him to be. Cooper can play boundary corner that week if you need him to. That is an incredibly valuable player to have. And as Ross mentioned on Friday, Brian Gutekunst just talked about wanting to have safeties that are interchangeable, and then safeties that are interchangeable also with your nickel. That is Cooper DeJean. And I think back to 2022 when I believe it was Mike Montgomery at the time, but one of the Packers coaches said, look, we really want a 3 technique that can rush the passer. And I thought, okay, day 2, early day 3, you can find that guy. And they drafted Devontae Wyatt in the first round. Usually when the Packers give you a clue this big, it means something. You want your safeties to be... Well, Anthony Johnson is not a box safety, and he's not a slot corner, though he did play corner at Iowa State. They felt the need to upgrade that position so much that they went on and they paid top of market kind of money for Xavier McKinney. They don't have another player who is interchangeable. So they've got to be drafting that person. Coop is the obvious choice here. And Brian Gutekunst said, we don't feel the same sort of urgency that everyone else does about the cornerback position. You got Eric Stokes, you got Jared Alexander, you got Carrington Valentine, you got Corey Ballantyne. Those are the guys, more or less, that handled it last year. They went to the divisional round of the playoffs. They almost beat the 49ers with those guys. And Keyshawn Nixon, of course, in the slot. Is it really that big a deal? Is that it really a problem if that's your group for next year? I don't think it is. But you don't have anything in safety. So to me, what is most likely is I continue to believe a trade up is coming. 2018, the Packers traded down and then traded back up. 2019, they traded up. They had 2 picks in the first round. They traded up for Darnell Savage. In 2020, they traded up for Jordan Love. In 2022, they traded up for Christian Watson. Now, 2023, they traded down a couple times, but they were also trying to retool a young roster on the fly, add draft picks, and that worked out beautifully for them. They turn the Jets pick into Jaden Reed, Carl Brooks, and Dontavian Wicks. That's a no-brainer, baby. And then they get 41 in this draft. So if you take 25, pair it with 91 or 88, it doesn't really matter. You can get to 20. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think, based on some conversations that I've had, if the right players, or in this case, the wrong players are on the board, Pittsburgh would have interest in moving back. So you put 25 and 91 together. You go up to 20. You jump Philly. You jump Miami. You jump some teams that could be in the corner or the safety market. And you get your guy. I think Cooper DeJean is a terrific fit next to Xavier McKinney. Is he the true post safety that, Jeff Hafley wants? No, but Xavier McKinney can do that when you want to play real, true, single high, whether it's cover 1, cover 3. Can he live in the box? No, but you don't need him to live in the box because you're not going to play that sort of coverage with Coop with any sort of consistency. You're gonna mix in some cover 2. You're gonna mix in some cover 4. You're gonna mix in some cover 1. You're gonna mix in some one robber. You're gonna do some stuff with these guys, and the interchangeability, the versatility, the adaptability of someone like Cooper DeJean. I keep going back to this phrase. He is a problem solver for the Green Bay Packers. And we have seen when they have these sorts of holes in their roster, you can talk about, we take best player available and all this stuff. Don't listen. It's nonsense. They don't. Best player available. Give me a break. There have been times when they have just blindly, Rashawn Gary was a classic case of best player available. They loved Rashawn Gary and they took him. But in that same draft, they had no one to play free safety. They traded up for Darnell Savage. Lane Taylor, last year of his deal, they needed a guard. They drafted Elton Jenkins. That same draft, they needed a tight end. They drafted Jay Sternberger. This is the idea of the Packers, we just take best player available. That's a nice thing to say. It's a nice thing to look cool for the football hipsters, but it's not a thing. They don't do it. No one does it, really. Not for any sustained period. Because it's not really a preferred strategy. The draft is about finding players who maximally improve your roster over the life of their rookie contract. That means prioritizing premium position players and players at positions of need. Drafting for need has become this bad thing. It's not. And you look at the best teams at drafting, the Ravens, the Packers, the Patriots for a while before Belichick got a little wonky. I don't know what happened there. They still drafted for need. They just found players that were good enough that it was fine. You have to find players that maximally improve your roster. And if it means giving up an extra 3rd round pick when you still have one and you got an extra 2nd round pick, you move up, You get Cooper DeJean, and he solves a lot of your problems. We'll talk about what happens in the second round coming up here on Locked On Packers. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can even bet on the NFL draft, where you think players are going to get drafted, how many receivers are going to go in the first round, how many offensive linemen, where Cooper DeJean is going to go, where Graham Barton is going to go, where Terrion Arnold is going to go. You can bet on all of that at FanDuel. You can also bet on some futures, some NBA futures if you want to do that. I don't know. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you feel like you're getting good value right now after what happened over the weekend in some of these early games. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 41 becomes pretty easy then. It has to be an offensive lineman. Because if you want to move Zach Tom, and even if you don't, this is where you want to find one of those guys. Now, if we're taking for granted that they want to move Zach Tom, then you have to find a tackle who's going to play tackle. Brian Gutekunst, as Ross Uglum pointed out on Friday, has never drafted a tackle to play tackle in the first 3 rounds of the draft. Now, they haven't needed one, so that's a big part of the equation here. So we don't really know what his preferences are early in the draft. He drafted Sean Ryan, who was a tackle at UCLA, to play guard. We knew from the jump he was drafted to play guard. So there are 2 players at 41 who are just no doubt Packers. Both of them are collegiate tackles who could play tackle or guard in Green Bay. The first is Jordan Morgan, 32 7/8 inch arms. They have not in the last 20 years started a tackle who had 33 1/4 inch arms or shorter. But that doesn't mean that they won't. We're talking about a quarter, whatever a 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch together is. I don't have the brain capacity for that math right now. That's a very small margin. He has the movement skills, the athletic traits that the Packers tend to prioritize. He's got a ton of experience in the Pac-12, and as we've talked about, they prioritize experience there. I could see Jordan Morgan at 41. I personally don't think his best position is tackle, and I personally don't think 41 is the best place for him. The player that I believe the Packers will select at 41 is Kingsley Suamataia, because he has the dimensions to play tackle. He's 21 years old, a relative athletic score over 9. Did not do agilities, but I think if you did his agilities, he would test well. The pass protection numbers suggest that. He has 2 years of starting experience at BYU, a de facto Power 5 program. That's a good program. The Packers have had good success. I mean, Jamal Williams, really good player from BYU. And if he's not ready right now, that's fine. He can play tackle, 6'4.5", 326, 325. He can play guard. If he can't start at right tackle right away, he could compete to play guard right away on the right side. This is an easy one. An easy one. I struggle with 58. I don't struggle with 41. It is going... I'm very sure that this is going to be 25-41. This is going to be offensive lineman, DB in some order. And that's where we land. I love Kingsley Suamataia. He is very, very Packersy. And I think he's a first round kind of talent, a borderline first round talent, which means getting him at 41 is really, really good value. Now, 58, I struggle. I went back and forth on this a lot, but ultimately landed in a place that I feel very comfortable with. And that is with Max Melton, the corner from Rutgers. And the reason I feel comfortable doing that at 58 is, number one, I don't think Cooper DeJean, when you draft him in the first round, is a preferred boundary corner player. Max Melton can play the boundary, and that is an inherent part of his appeal. But he can also play the slot. And so now you're adding two extremely versatile pieces to this secondary, and I think this is a defense that is ultimately going to be as successful as the secondary allows it to be, because the front is so good. With Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt and Carl Brooks and Kobe Wooden and Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness and whoever else they draft, this front is really good. We'll see about the linebackers, more on that in a second. But to get a player who can play the boundary, who can play the slot, who can play special teams if he can't get on the field on the starting defense, because this is, after all, a team that expects to compete for Super Bowls. You can only have so many rookies starting on the squad. And his brother's already on the team. And that's not the biggest appeal here. But it helps. It's nice. Culturally, I really like Max Melton. This 58, like a touch rich for me. Yeah. But when you look at some of the boards with people who are very plugged in the NFL, they think this is the right range for Max. A borderline top 50 kind of player. And the athletic testing says absolutely yes. He's a Packers type all the way. And even if you get someone like Cooper DeJean, because he can play actual corner and the slot, and Cooper can play corner and safety and the slot, now you've added these two incredibly versatile pieces, and you provided so much insurance for your defensive coordinator, for your roster, to say, look, if any combination of players goes down, we have the right guys. And if any combination of players just doesn't meet expectations, we have the right guys. You want to turn Keyshawn Nixon into a return-only player, someone who catches the occasional jet sweep. You can, because Max Melton can play the slot. Eric Stokes can't stay healthy. Well, now you don't have to swap your safety, Cooper DeJean, out. You can just play Max Melton there if he's good enough to do that. But if he's not, you have Cooper. It's double insurance. It's a no-brainer to me to handle it this way. And I believe the Packers like Max Melton. It's a little bit of a reach based on some of the consensus boards, but I don't think, based on the intel, that teams around the league would think this is a reach. I think this is in the range where they think he can go, where they think he will go. And that's the key. That's the key here. All right, we're going to finish up our draft here in just a second on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, you can save up to 60% buying last minute for sports, comedy, theater, and more. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And with the lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find seats in the same section and row for less. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. And Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available in the free Fire TV channels app. The last player in our mock draft, because remember, we traded 91 to move up with Cooper DeJean. You have the 88th pick. In my ideal mock scenario, we talked about Jalen Wright. Running back feels like it makes sense here. The Packers just don't seem to care. Like, it's one thing to be surreptitious about these things, and I understand, you have these meetings, but the Packers have in the past been able to show us, hey, we're looking at first round edge rushers. Hey, we're looking at second round receivers. Hey, we're looking at there's just like no running backs to speak of in the mix. They don't seem to really be that interested. And so I think they're going to wait on running backs. I think, day 3, grab somebody. But there's also one of the places they've shown interest is at receiver. In this spot, Jermaine Burton from Alabama, they had him for a visit. Really, really talented kid. But some attitude issues reportedly. I can't speak to that because I don't have the intel, but that's what the reporting is. There was an incident with a fan storming the field situation. I kind of think like I'm not going to worry about that much because there's no storming the field in the NFL. Tez Walker was a visit. We've talked about Christian Watson insurance, deep ball insurance. Can you find someone who can stretch the field vertically, that if Christian Watson can't stay healthy, you still have someone that frees Romeo Doubs up, because he would be the only other guy, really. Jaden Reed has been someone who can get vertical from the slot, but sometimes you need someone who, on that go route on the outside or that post route on the outside can really threaten a safety just to make the geometry of your offense work. If they're going to take a receiver on day 2 in that second, third round range, I think Jalen McMillan, is the guy that makes the most sense to me. Someone, in his second to last year of college had a lot of production. They like multiple years of production. I think he would have had the production they looked for last year had he not been hurt. But that's not who I'm going to pick here. The one position that they've not addressed of the need positions that they have is linebacker. And we talked about ideal circumstances, and I mentioned on Thursday, I believe it was, that I was trying to get Trayvon Wallace into the ideal scenario, but I couldn't make it work because I thought offensive tackle was the ideal at 25, and so therefore you have to get 41. Like a truly ideal would be like 25, and cornerback is 41 is Kool-Aid McKinstry, and then Javon Bullard, and then a linebacker at 88. Maybe I should have done that, honestly. But right here, I think Trayvon Wallace from Kentucky, elite athletic tools, Senior Bowl kid. Don't underestimate the value of a guy who played at the Senior Bowl. The Packers love Senior Bowl players. He is a little bit raw, but you're getting him in the third round. You have Isaiah McDuffie on the team. You don't have to play him right away. But the traits are off the charts with this guy. Does he always know what he's looking at? No, that's the thing. Like, I think with instincts at linebacker, they're more important than the measurables. Do you have the instincts to play? Can you just sniff out a play? Do you sense when the offense is trying to trick you? Are you going to take the cheese on a play action pass? There are certain players that just have that instinct. Hey, I know where the ball is going. Hey, I know I can see by the flow of the offensive line that this running back is going to cut this back if this running back is worth half a crap. And sometimes they're not. But not everyone can do that. And Wallace is still figuring that part of it out. But the movement skills are special. They are special. And you can see the flashes in coverage, in run and chase situations. And, you know, if you like Edgerrin Cooper, a guy who is not, you know, making plays moving backwards in coverage, then, you know, Trayvon Wallace is sort of like discount Edgerrin Cooper because similar athletic traits, but you can get him probably a round or two later. So in a circumstance like this, I think this is better value. Getting a linebacker here, you know, the Packers go DB in the first, safety corner, offensive tackle at 41. They get another corner. Like, we are maximizing positional value here. And this is not even based on, you know, that, like, when I did my ideal scenario, that's what I was looking at. But this is what I think is going to happen. This is me predicting something. And the Packers have not always been the team that's going to say, we're going to maximize positional value. We're going to maximize, you know, consensus board value. Like, I care about that stuff, but they don't seem to. But this is one of those where everything sort of fits together. And I think this makes a lot of sense for Green Bay. So I fully expect them to go like receiver, guard, fullback, tight end now. But that's how this works. We're having fun. We're back tomorrow as we are one day closer to the 2024 NFL Draft. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us, we'll be live on Thursday night, on Friday night. Go subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll get the alerts so you can stay Locked On Packers.